Welcome to Saints History, told and experienced the way God intended it, with excessive amounts of alcohol and cursing. The booze is probably bourbon because...
Other alcohols are for rich women on diets.
Now, here's your Drunk Saints History host, who is...
bombed out of his gourd.
All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Drunk Saints History. It's been too long. We've been derelict in our obligations to give you Drunk Saints History, but my guy, Scott Prather, 1420 ESPN of Lafayette, you should check out his show, The Great Scott Show, the great sports think tank in Lafayette. You should check it out. I don't listen to it daily. I listen to it a day later on my drive into Houston because I can work from home now, but it is must-listen-to radio. Scott, thanks for joining us. We're going to get drunk tonight, and we're going to talk about Saints players that we irrationally love.
Yeah, I feel like we've done it before.
We have, probably.
I think we did the Joe Horn drunk Saints history.
Yeah.
We irrationally love Joe Horn. But, like, a lot of Saints fans did for all the reasons we mentioned. So maybe this isn't as much a Joe Horn type of player as it is.
Yeah,
where some of the listeners will probably be like, yeah, I have that too, and others will be like, wait, who are they even talking about?
Yeah, well, before we set the ground rules, I just want to say this. We're recording this you probably listen to it later, but we're recording this on the day the stupid Buccaneers had their boat parade, and Tom Brady got hammered out of his mind, and they had to get carried off the boat. And Tom Brady might have 7 rings, Scott, but I am 100% convinced my crippled ass could drink him under the table. That man probably drinks like 1 beer every 5 years. The amount of sugar in my alcoholic drinks would give him shock and maybe put him in a coma. I'm 100% convinced I could drink Tom Brady under the table.
Rev, I mean, with respect, there's not too many players in the league I would put up against you. I mean,
I'm not
Brady. His liver. He probably, as wasted as he was today, just like stumbling everywhere, as Ryan Griffin is the one like carrying him away from the media before he said something dumb. Brady, that was probably, you realize that was probably like 2 shots of tequila.
Probably
is all it took.
It's probably like a light beer. You know, like
yeah,
it was probably like
Michelob Ultra.
like a Michelob Ultra and a half. You know, the thing is, man, his liver is fully functioning. My liver has been dead my liver. I'm 100% sure it died the night of the no call. Like that, I'm sure it might have been dead before that, but I'm definitely sure it probably stopped functioning then and hasn't been since. But back to this podcast, we decided to do Saints we irrationally love, and we set some ground rules. You can't be a Saints Hall of Famer. You can't have like a 5-year period of really good play. You can have moments, but you can't be like, you can't be like, I irrationally love Ricky Jackson. No shit. All right? Right? So, that was the thing there. So, who did you pick for your Saints players that you irrationally love? Your first one. We're going to do a couple each.
I've got a list here, but I don't know if this one counts. I mean, you're the host with
Here we
the
go.
Dead Liver, so you set the ground rules here. But like anyone that knows me, it's no surprise. I mean, like I nearly named my first son Pierre.
There you go.
I had Pierre Thomas on my show.
I feel like he's very
and
much
asked him to be the godfather to my youngest child. And, she wasn't born yet. And he was like, yeah, I mean, if you want, that's cool. I mean, I told the man I loved him.
That is irrational.
I also had him open up.
That qualifies.
Stuff. But, like, he is – so he's a fan favorite. So he's somebody that probably a lot of fans irrationally love. But, God damn, Ralph. I mean, like, he could do it all. He played through injury. He had the great backstory of just – undrafted. They moved up in the draft to take someone else. He thought he got cut just because he didn't get a call saying he made the team. He didn't realize it was the other way around. He was packing his bags to drive back to Chicago. That fucking guy, man. I'd take a bullet for
here's
Pierre
the
Thomas.
here's
That's
the
how
thing.
irrational it is.
Here's the thing. Willing to name your children after him. That can get you qualified as irrational. So we'll allow it. Okay. The thing is, I feel like he can qualify is because Saints fans love him, and they talk about how you talked about how I love his story. He was great. He was all around, and he did magical things. But I feel like, and I've said this before, we probably said this on other Drunk History podcasts and Saints podcasts in general, is when we talk about the 2009 Saints, we talk about Breeze, MVP of the Super Bowl. We talk about Tracy Porter. We talk about Adrian Peterson fumbling 960 times in the NFC Championship game. We talk about the Meach around. We talk about all these things. And his 2009 NFC Championship game was a Mount Rushmore all-time Saints performance. And it's just, people forget about it, but then when you go look at it and you're like, oh yeah, he had 140 total yards and he had 2 touchdowns and he got the 4th down conversion and he ran the kickoff back in overtime 40 yards. Like, and then you put it all together, you're like, oh yeah, that was fucking awesome.
See, when you say we talk about you're with respect, you're not speaking for me. Like, when I talk about 2009,
you talk about
I
that.
talk about Pierre Thomas first. Yeah. First name out of my mouth. I talk about a dance he did in a Monday night game after scoring a touchdown in the first half against the Falcons and swag. So I talk about all these little moments that only an irrational fan that loves someone way too much in a weird way would remember. But no, and there's a couple other players from the 2009 team that I kind of have irrational love for. But in terms of like Saints history, I mean, Scott, you're in the media, you're not supposed to, let your fandom come in there. Well, fuck that. No. I mean, I got no problem letting everybody know anytime they want to listen that Pierre Thomas is, the greatest player in the history of the world of any sport.
Yeah, I had somebody email me. They were like, I don't know why Channel 4 puts you on the morning news on their television. You are not an objective journalist. I'm like, that's the reason you think Channel 4 shouldn't have me on, that I'm not objective? Like, I could think of like a dozen legitimate reasons Channel 4 should not have me on the television. Not being objective is like number 8,000 on that list, like, buddy.
That's actually the reason they have you on. Like, it's like, that's what you, like you said, like, that's actually why they have me on, dude. It's not this, what about the cat that jumps into the screen?
Yeah, they have me on for 2 reasons. They have me on because the cat is funny, and they have me on so Eric Paulson can dunk on me at 6:45 in the morning. That's why they have me on in the morning. And they hope that my wife can't set out my clothes and I dress really horribly. Like, that's what they want. That's what they want from me.
That's like my favorite part of the whole thing.
What, that my wife dresses me?
Like you're like Anthony Davis in that way.
I know.
The clothes
well, yeah, but
for you, and you're wearing whatever she lays out that day.
But here's the thing: like, I'm colorblind and crippled. Like, what's Anthony Davis's excuse?
I've heard this bit before.
I know, right? I am just saying. I'm just saying. I probably did it on your radio show.
But it's not a bit. I mean,
it's true. I mean, it's true. Exactly. It's not.
All right.
But
give me someone. Give me an irrational.
I have an irrational love for Willie Jackson, and it's not just. Most people think of Willie Jackson as the Saints. They played in the playoff game in 2000. Akeem drops the ball, and Joe Horn gets hurt, and Aaron Brooks has to throw to like Robert Wilson and Jake Reed. And Willie Jackson had 6 catches for 142 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, it's just like the most random, glorious Saints big moment ever. Like, but the thing is, also, reason I love Willie Jackson is another moment from the 2000 season, which might be Aaron Brooks's most crazy play as a Saints quarterback. Is he threw a touchdown to Willie Jackson in the San Francisco game that year at San Francisco. It was 22 yards where Aaron Brooks ran forward, backwards, side to side, spun, threw a rope between like 3 49ers, dude. I think 2 of the 49ers like almost collided. The ball went past them. Willie Jackson's in the back of the end zone and he caught it. And like Hokie Gajan on the call was just cackling with delight. He's like he was. I think the way he described it was, it's like trying to tackle smoke. And the thing was, at that moment, we thought Aaron Brooks was going to be. We were like, hallelujah, he's a franchise quarterback, right? It ended up not being that, but just that play to Willie Jackson was just amazing. And like Willie Jackson, like the Saints in 2000, just like picked him up off the scrap heap, and he was great. And I just have a rational love for random Saints players that brought me joy. He
brought some incredible joy, and what people don't, I think what people forget is, he had 2 years with the Saints that were just, 2000 and 2001. He wasn't a guy that you would say, if you were a scout, that should be a number 2 receiver on a team, because he probably shouldn't have. But he had some big moments that just, I love Willie Jackson too. I remember there's this like Big Brother, Big Sister program that I did when I was in college in 2000 at Loyola. And, I did it for a few years. Maybe it was like, I think it was like it was probably in 01.
Yeah.
It was probably after the playoff game. But there was this kid that like, he repped a white Saints Willie Jackson jersey, like every day. Like that was it. And I'll be honest, I didn't see any other Willie Jackson jerseys ever, but maybe that kid was like your kindred spirit, Ralph, because he loved it. And he had over 1,000 receiving yards in 01. Like there was a
81 catches,
where he's really
1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, man. Like he was legit.
Then he fell off a cliff and went to Atlanta for like a few minutes and didn't do anything there.
Yeah.
So even the lesser version of the way Joe Horn did it over there. But no arguments for me, man. Irrational love for Willie Jackson, I think, is a good thing. I think it's healthy.
Yeah. I got another. You go with your second one, but I got a second one that popped in my head. I completely changed my mind because I forgot about him. You go with your second, and then I'm going to go.
All right. So I'm going to go with the receiver that caught, I think, one pass in the regular season for the Saints his entire time there, and that would be Mr. Courtney Roby. But this guy, all right, he had one rough day in San Francisco in a game that we're not going to talk about because we've spent too much time of our lives being impressed about it. But you look at his time with the Saints and his impact. The Colts, they just released a dude before the season in 08. He came in and he played a little bit in 08, and then he went on IR, and you kind of forgot about him. And then 09 starts, and what was it? Rod Harper is this big preseason story. He makes the team, then gets on IR after 1 week. No one remembers him. But Roby's just kind of floating. Many people are like, why is he even on the team? And he was so fucking good. Like, yeah, he had a kick return for a touchdown in the win against St. Louis, where the Saints only won by 5 on that Sunday against the bad Rams team. But it was like the guy was involved in plays all the time. Like punting, kicking, like he was there. If he wasn't making the tackle, he was having an impact on the play. If you go back and look at any special teams play for the Saints from like 09 to 2012, you will see Courtney Roby, like he's going to be in the picture. He's going to be in the picture. He's going to be making a play. He's going to be involved in the play. Like, he was awesome. And, he had one really bad concussion one time and got carted off, and I remember just being very worried about him.
Another guy.
Like your boy Willie. Go ahead.
I was going to say, huge kickoff return in the NFC Championship game against Minnesota.
There you dude.
Just
an absolute stud that, it's not a position or a player. Like, it wasn't no one was buying a Courtney Roby jersey, but I almost went to NFL Shop and just laid down way too much money just so I could rep one.
I'm telling you. Thing is, we get, and you're probably like this too, as a Saints fan, you can have irrational love for a kick return. Like a kick returner, they make a couple of good kick returns and don't fumble. You remember those guys forever, man. Like,
Let me ask you a question, Ralph. As you continue to get drunk.
I am. I'm drinking a lot. I'm drinking. I'm drinking Jim Beam honey over ice. I'm not even cutting it with soda.
No, why would you do that?
No. I know it's a Wednesday. It's a Wednesday, right? Why would you do that?
Do you know who Do you know who Courtney Roby's cousin is? Not just Reggie. So Reggie Roby was a cousin of his. People remember the punter for the Dolphins. But do you know who another cousin of his was? This is at least according to the internet.
Who?
All right. Darren Sproles.
Wow.
So, even more reason to love Courtney Roby irrationally. I mean, the bloodline when you consider what they did for the Saints, I love me some Courtney Roby, man. Love it. Special teams captain, special teams player of the month in 2010, special teams MVP for the Saints in 2009, is voted on by his teammates. Not Hartley, not Morstead, it was Courtney Roby. That guy was the man. That guy is the man, and I love him.
So my second choice, and I completely forgot about this guy until I was looking up Willie Jackson stats. I got to go with rest in peace, big man, Norman Hand. And
the big wiggle.
The big wiggle. And, most people remember him as Big Wiggle. He was a guy from Ole Miss. The Saints signed him, and he was one of the guys where the Saints in 2000, where they just signed a ton of guys, right? They signed Jeff Blake and Joe Horn and Norman Hand. It was just great because we were like, oh my God, the Saints have figured out how to do free agency, and they're spending money with Randy Mueller. They have this young GM. This is great. But the thing that I remember about Norman Hand, one, your boy was immovable. Like, good luck trying to move that dude if you want to run by him. Good fucking luck. He had 54 tackles in 2044. But the thing I remember most about him was, remember 2000, the Saints played the Rams the final week. And if the Saints would have won, they would have got a bye. Right? They would have been the 2 seed and not Minnesota. And they lost. And Marshall Faulk had just a monstrous game. Norman Hand was so fucking despondent. He did the interview after the game in a full uniform. He took off his helmet, did the interview in his full uniform, and was like, I'm embarrassed. We got run over, and I'm telling you, that shit isn't happening next week. This is embarrassing. And they stuffed Marshall Faulk. The playoff game where Akeem dropped the ball, and Kurt Warner had a concussion. They threw all over him. The Saints, by the grace of God, escaped. But I just remember that about Norman Hand, how passionate he was and how much he cared. And that was his first year with the freaking Saints. And I have a soft spot, Scott, for guys that love the Saints. And also, I'm like not full media, but I'm like media adjacent. So I always have a warm spot for guys that don't duck the fucking media. Like Jason David, he was terrible for the Saints, but that dude never ducked the media. He always took the bullets after his terrible performances, right? Norman Hand, the run defense was trash. Your boy does the post-game interview, takes all the questions, wearing a full uniform. That's my kind of Saint. I have irrational love for him. Rest in peace, Big Wiggle. He's one of my guys that I irrationally love. I saw a guy in Disney World repping the Norman Hand jersey. I went up to him and was like, "You are spectacular." Of course, he was a Saints fan. He was a Saints fan in his early 60s. But we bonded over his Norman Hand jersey.
Hell yeah, dude! The Big Wiggle, man. He was. Saints gave him a big contract in 2000, at least by those standards, for a player that, based on what he had done in San Diego. And I remember there was some criticism, the Aints, what are they doing? And he just was this key cog and this huge piece to that defense, which was the biggest reason the Saints, as much as we talk about Willie Jackson and Aaron Brooks and Joe Horn and, Ricky Williams, and we could go on, and that great offensive line, which was spectacular that year. The defense is really what led the way that season, and Norman Hand was just a huge part of that.
Dude, the defense, they had I'm looking it up now because I forget the number. I want to get it right. They had 66 sacks in 16 games. That is not a mistake by me.
Leroy had like 17 from the D tackle position.
Dude, they had
how hard that is?
They had 17. Joe Johnson had 12. Darren Howard had 11. Keith Mitchell had 6.5, Willie Whitehead had 5.5, and Norman had 3, and they had like 5 guys with 2. Like they basically killed Steve Berline, I think, and sent him into retirement. Like they just wrecked people. Like I know we wax nostalgic about the 2000 Saints, and people that listen to this podcast, they may not be old enough to remember.
Remember when COVID started? I like spent a week just talking to players from that team, and they were all. What struck me is all the ones that came on like were so excited to talk about it.
Yeah,
like they feel like they remember the season well. They remember the city just really being kind of just on fire for the Saints, and I think they get forgotten about so much because of the Peyton Breeze era, but it was one season. It wasn't an era, but goddamn, it was fun.
I mean, here's the thing that I have said, and I argue with Saints fans on Twitter. I won't get into it, but my theory about sports in general, as I'm on my 5th drink here, my thing about sports, Scott, is the two most enjoyable moments when you follow a sports team are the year, if you're lucky enough to win a championship. That's the best, right? But the second best is when you go from the era of not being good to that first year where you're like, oh my God, we are good again? We're relevant?
I 100% agree with you.
And
I mean, it's
Sundays are fucking fun again.
It's not even close. I'm with you all the way. Like, it's just, especially like the Saints were, the Ditka years were 3 years, but Ralph, they felt like 5 years. Like it felt like an eternity. It was the '99 season was, the later years of Mora they felt so much longer. Like it was really only 8 years since the Saints had been in the playoffs, and yet it felt so much longer.
It did.
And part of it's just that they never won a playoff game, and all of that adds to it, and all the years before it. But man, when that 2000 season hit, it was like you didn't get on. They didn't get in Monday Night Football games. They didn't get in prime time. Back when Monday Night Football was on ABC and meant something, it was like that never happened. They were never in the spotlight. They were never talked about, and you couldn't get a consumption of Saints news like you can now from the Saints Happy Hour podcast or my show or wherever. Back then, you could only just kind of get it from the paper and the Saints website, which this is 2000 Saints, so there wasn't much happening on the website. They just
you go to like message boards, you go to like Saints Report to get like free agent, but like free agency news was like ESPN.com, but they didn't have like the website. They didn't like update it like nonstop. Where like now free agency, the window opens and it's like huge breaking news just nonstop. The thing is about the 2000 team was it was just, it felt like after Ditka, because people didn't, it was the salary cap and free agency had been around, but it wasn't this thing of like that can fix your team. And there was a feeling of like Ditka gave away the whole draft, and instead of picking second, we don't have a first round pick. Like, this is going to be like a long fucking ass project, and we got this young GM, and maybe in like 3 years we can be good again if they know what the fuck they're doing. And they just went out and like turned it on their head and was like, you know what? The one thing that Ditka did was he was so lazy he didn't spend money. So the Saints had like all this cap room. So Randy Mueller was like, listen, you don't have fucking draft picks. We're going to spend all this fucking money, and I got this cap whiz, you don't know who he is, Mickey Loomis. We're going to spend a shit ton of money in free agency, and we're going to get good fast. And they did it, and it was just so, it's so joyous when you go from terrible to good again. It's just the best. It's the best thing in sports besides winning a championship. It just is, and you can't convince me otherwise.
I'm not going to argue with you, man. It was, it really is. It's just it feels out of nowhere, and especially back then when you just didn't get to consume it all the time, and like you'd look for Saints stuff places you couldn't get it. Now they're good and people are talking about it. It meant something. But I feel like you and I always somehow end up back on the 2000 Saints, even when we're not intending
We really
to.
do.
Man,
We might just do a drunk history game by game. We won't do it like a whole thing on the 2000. We'll just do a drunk history. We'll do it like week 1.
Let's do it. I'm game. Game. There's a lot of players on the 2000 team I have irrational love for. Now I've gotten to talk to some of them. I've gotten to know a few of them, like Terrell Smith. I loved the rookie fullback, and now that I'll text him and I talk to him and I've had him on, and he's a really interesting cat. But I'll try to steer us away from one of our favorite subjects, which is the 2000 Saints. I'm going to go back to a guy because, I love Dalton Hilliard, favorite player, but everyone loved Dalton Hilliard, and he was a Pro Bowler, so he didn't qualify. But another guy that was born in Louisiana, went to college at a school in Louisiana, was drafted by the Saints, played for the Saints, and played pretty good, not a lead or anything, was Floyd Turner.
Oh, yeah.
Fabulous Floyd, as some like to call him. I think he had a touchdown in the playoff loss to Atlanta, which, again, I'm sorry to bring up a playoff loss. But he was on the Saints for 5 seasons when the Saints were good, during some of the better Mora years, with the exception of the last one in '93. He scored. He was a Louisiana native. He talked shit. He would score touchdowns and he would do things that might get a flag now. But back then it was just look at this dude. This is different. This is something. And he was kind of same number, kind of like Willie Jackson. Not the shit talking part, but just not the best receiver on the team, not necessarily the first choice or the go-to guy, but made plays. They went to the Colts and made plays and was on, I think the Ravens' inaugural season. So, he might have got involved in a check laundering scheme after his playing days, the kind
Might have.
Everyone remembers the email dear friend, I am Ikumba from Nigeria, and I have come into this fortune. This prince has died. Please. It was one of those things, right?
Yeah.
In the earlier internet days. And, he was involved, didn't get arrested or anything like that, but reportedly involved in a check laundering scheme, and it's still $12 million from Bank One. But that's neither here nor there. When he played, I had irrational love for Floyd Turner as a kid. I'd go to the games and I'd just say, throw it to Floyd. Throw it to Floyd. What are you doing throwing it to Michael Haynes? Throw it to Floyd Turner. Why are you throwing it to anybody else? Throw the ball to Floyd. I would just go to the games. I would say it. Anytime he made a play, I would get absurdly excited. I know that he ranks 13th all-time in career two-point conversions. Nobody knows that unless you have an irrational love for a guy. So, I'll throw Floyd Turner in the hat.
Floyd Turner has one of my favorite all-time Saints plays, and you probably remember this. 1991, the Saints started 5-0. Well, they started 7-0, but they went 5-0. I think they went 5-0 in September. And they beat the Falcons to get to 5-0, 27-6. Floyd Turner scored on a 47-yard touchdown from Bobby Hebert, and he dragged Deion Sanders to the fucking end zone like a rag doll because Deion didn't know how to tackle. And it was just that was back in the days where they played in the old Fulton County Stadium, right? So you had 40,000 Saints fans just going bananas in Fulton County, just laughing at the Falcons as it's 27-6, and it was just delightful. It was just one of those moments where oh my God, the Saints they're really fucking good in 91. And they didn't win a playoff game and all that, but it's just one of those moments where to just beat the Falcons down is always a joy, but to do it when the Saints are good is extra special now. I remember about that at Floyd, so I appreciate your irrational love for Floyd Turner.
It was the first time I remember because I remember it. Basically, he gave Deion Sanders prime time. He gave him a piggyback ride into the end zone.
That's right.
Deion literally just tried to just jump on his back, and Floyd's like, "All right, come on, I'll bring you in with me. You're not bringing me down." And I definitely remember that, man. Look, that season, Pat Swilling was the Defensive Player of the Year. The Saints led the NFL in points allowed. Their defense was just so damn good. But people remember Dalton Hilliard and fucking Gil Finnerty and all this other stuff, and obviously the great linebackers, and they remember Quinn Early and Eric Martin. I remember Floyd Turner because he was just, again, irrational love, right? And no reason why he should have been the guy, but I was a kid and that was one of my guys.
Yeah, my final irrational love Saints player is Gene Atkins. Just because I feel like Gene Atkins, even though the Saints, San Francisco always beat them more than the Saints beat the Niners because the Niners were a dynasty, I always remember Gene Atkins. It seemed like every 49ers game, the first series, Jerry Rice would go over the middle and Gene Atkins would try to decapitate him. And sometimes he did it and didn't get a penalty, because in the 80s you could do that shit. And sometimes he did it, and it was so violent, even in the 80s and early 90s, they'd be like, that's personal foul. And the Saints didn't give a fuck because they wanted to tell San Francisco, John Taylor, Jerry Rice, you motherfuckers might be Hall of Famers, you might be great, but we are going to pound your fucking ass today. And if you go over the middle, there's going to be violence. And I just love that about Gene Atkins. He was all about just murdering guys over the middle. He was never a Pro Bowler. His son is actually a great defensive tackle, Geno Atkins. But he's my final irrational love Saints player. I might have.
Look, I actually thought about it. I thought of Gene Atkins when you brought this topic up to me. Now I didn't name him, but you brought up the '91 season. Gene's best game was best. I mean, it's all, I guess, to each his own. But for me, that last game of the season, the Saints were in Phoenix playing the Cardinals. They had to win the division. Otherwise, Atlanta would have won, and they needed to win. And Phoenix wasn't good, but the Saints, they had a really rough stretch in November where they had lost like 5 in a row, and they were coming off of a win, but there was still some question of whether they could do it. Atkins had 3 interceptions in that game for 99 yards worth of returns. He had a couple of hits where he just absolutely laid people out. He had a kick return in that game. Like, he was all over the field.
Yep.
And I remember, I was actually in New Orleans that day, even though the game was in Phoenix, and my mom and I drove out to the airport where the players come back and they would drive down that road. And I don't remember seeing Gene Atkins drive by, but that day I was like, I want to see Gene. Really, the players would drive by in their cars and honk. Morton Anderson was the one that was like hanging out of the window, just like giving people high fives and really getting into it. But it was that day, that player, Gene Atkins, man.
I remember
a guy that Saints fans, I think, longtime Saints fans, they'll always remember.
The one thing I remember about that '91 team when they flew back, and of course, going to the airport is a huge Saints fan thing. It's always been that way. Fans go to the airport and stuff. I remember the players got off the plane and they were all wearing the 1991 champion, NFC West champion T-shirts, and Jim Mora was like, they're like, usually you have to dress up on the plane, but Jim Mora was like, no, I wanted them to wear the shirts because this is a big deal. It's the first division, and like Jim Mora, he was like, we can't say playoffs until we get there and all that, but even Jim Mora was like, this is a big goddamn deal. Let's enjoy it. Let's celebrate. So I remember that even Jim Mora was wearing the T-shirt coming off the plane. It was just like it was a huge deal. Now we're like, division championship, what's that? But like in '91, man, it was like it's like other teams may hang Super Bowl banners. We are fucking hanging that NFC West champion banner. You better believe that shit. We're hanging that shit in the dome.
Yeah, man. It only took 24 years to win a division. So you goddamn right. That was the Ching season, right?
That's
that was
right.
The big slogan.
They flew
the Dome Patrol. I think they were all They were all in the Pro Bowl that year. As was Benny Thompson. Remember him? He was a special team beast. But it was the first. God, I remember that goddamn loss to Chicago with the first loss of the season. Morton hit a 60-yarder in that game at the half, but it was just that weird. Like so many great Saints seasons, Ralph, it ended in just such pain. It had to be.
It had to be Atlanta.
It had to be the freaking Falcons.
I'll never. I didn't have the courage because I only worked with Bobby Hebert for like a little bit of time because Buddy D died in January and they hired Bobby later in the spring, and then I left in the fall. I never had the courage to be like, what the fuck were you thinking on that interception to Dion in the end zone when y'all are up 10-0 and you were about to put the hammerlock on the Falcons and we were going to have a fucking party in that dome and you fucked it up. Like I will never forgive Bobby Hebert for that.
Get him on the podcast, have a couple of brown waters, and then just ask him point blank, just like that.
What happened? But you know that the thing is, you know, the Saints, the memories of it. It's just great. I mean, you know, and I think I hope the Saints don't, because the thing is, like, when you're bad, it takes freaking. It feels like, you know, you say it, people are like, oh, it'll be fun to go 13-3. It's fun for like 2 weeks, and then it's misery, and you're like, it's October 1st. It's the middle of October. We're 1-5, and I need to start looking at draft guides. Like, then it's just misery to the finish.
It's not fun, man. It's not. I don't get that. I mean, if you want to argue, is it more fun than 7-9 or media? Whatever. I don't know. I mean, why are you even having the debate over what's more fun of two things that aren't fun? Winning is fun. The draft is fun. Granted, it's you know, it's 3 days. One day where it's really fun, which is the first round, but like a whole season, man, I'm with you. I don't get this whole.
And I'm going to say this,
and for a year, and then it'll be great. Like there's no guarantees, and there is something about having a winning culture. Like there's something about a winning culture and a losing culture, and you can tell teams like the Jags, God bless them, like they have a losing culture. They had one great season a few years ago. They had no idea how to handle it at all. We were talking about the 2000 team and how much we loved them. Like, they had no idea to handle that success. They didn't. Now, they didn't turn into the Jags the next year or anything, but they just couldn't. The locker room, the culture, all of it, like, you don't. It's more than just one bad season and a good draft pick. It can change the entire direction of the franchise if you're not careful. So I don't understand all this. Hey, just suck for a year and then see what happens and tank for this guy or that guy. I mean, fuck all that. Just go try to win.
And I'm going to tell you why I think the 2021 Saints season is going to be incredibly fun. It's going to be incredibly fun no matter what. Because I think the Saints are going to get Jameis, and America, and we did a funny clip. Our new guy that we have hired full time, by the way, Thomas from Poland. He is going to full time produce the video part of the podcast now. So any complaints that you motherfuckers have about me doing bad video, do it to Thomas, because he's going to be in Poland doing the video live for us, running it behind the scenes. But I did a video and I said this. I think America, Scott, is going to laugh at the Saints and point at them because they are going to go with Jameis. And the Tampa Bay just got rid of Jameis, and they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady. And America is going to point and laugh at the Saints and think that it's going to be a disaster with Jameis at quarterback. And I think some Saints fans, all of us, we're going to have lowered expectations. And I think Jameis, I think Sean Payton is going to coax him to be like 35% less Jameis-y. And the Saints are going to be ridiculous, fucking fun and frustrating and exciting because of Jameis. And you're going to have games where he's going to look amazing and they're going to win. And you're going to have games where he's going to be Jameis and you're going to want to kick him in the balls. But it's going to be new and it's going to be fun and it's going to be exciting. And the Saints are going to go fucking 10-6 and win the South again. And I think it's going to be the most. It's going to be the most fun that we've had as a Saints fandom in a while, because we still have the scars and the pain and all that, but Jameis is going to help us heal. And I know that sounds stupid and cliche, and maybe I'm too many drinks in, but I really believe that in my heart about 2021, even though it's way far away.
Go ahead and book it, everybody. Thursday night opener, NFL season opener next year will be Saints Bucks at Raymond James Stadium. Like, the defending champs host that opener. The Saints, they beat the Saints in the playoffs. Saints whooped their ass in the regular season. Whoop-de-doo, whatever. Okay, Tampa won when it counted most. I get it. But throw in the Jameis Winston angle? Oh, that's
on.
Book it. Unless there's some kind of scheduling conflict. Shoot, more people might watch that than the damn Super Bowl with their lowest ratings in 14 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kidding, but it will, from an opener standpoint, the ratings will be big. And, I mean, how damn intriguing is that going to be? So I'm for it, man, and I hope you're right. I don't have a strong feeling yet about next season. I'm still kind of just so caught up in what's coming next in the off season. But I do agree with you. I think for a while I was saying like 40% Jameis, 40% Taysom, 10% Stafford. That was before he got traded. 10% someone else. But now I'm pretty much like 60% Jameis, 38% Taysom, 2% someone else as far as who's starting for the Saints week one. That's where I'm at.
I'm gonna be if some team gives Jameis a ridiculous offer, I'm gonna be sad. I'm gonna be sad, and I'm gonna have to get drunker than I am right now, which is pretty fucking drunk because people know it because I'm cursing and my words are slurring. So, get anybody, Scott, before we get out of here, tell the people how they can find you and support your show.
With excessive amounts of alcohol.
All right, you can find me on the ESPN 1420 app, ESPN1420.com. That's our radio station. You can listen there. Great Scott show. That's an acronym. Scott is anyway. S.C.O.T.T. Sorry, I've been drinking too. For the Anchor, Spotify, if you want to listen on demand. But the easiest thing, of course, is just Twitter at Scott_1420 at Scott_1420. And yeah, man, who dat? And long live Pierre and Willie and Courtney and Floyd and Gene. And we didn't even get into Terrell Smith. I didn't even get to talk about Ashley Ambrose or Vince Buck. And Milton Mack, I didn't even really love him. He wasn't a good player. I just loved his name. As a kid, I'm like, cool name, Milton Mack. But maybe another alternate.
Maybe. I'm so drunk I'm hitting the wrong buttons on my soundboard. But anyway, thanks for joining us, Scott. Everybody, thanks for joining us. British lady, take us out.
Thanks to all of our Saints Happy Hour listeners whose donations made Drunk Saints history possible. Until next time, remember, surviving Saints history is hard. That's why God made alcohol.